All right, today we're doing something a little different. We are going to crack open a university data visualization exam to see how charts tell stories, unlock some pretty powerful business secrets, and yeah, sometimes how they can flat out lie to you. Let's get into it.
You know that feeling, right? You're looking at a chart in a meeting or some article, and your gut just tells you something's off. Like, you're not getting the whole story. Well, you're not crazy. Today, we're going to arm you with a kind of X-ray vision for data, so you can see the truth and spot when someone's trying to bend it.
So here's the game plan. First, we'll solve a couple of real-world business puzzles with charts. Then, things get interesting. We'll dive into the dark arts of how charts can deceive you, and we'll finish up with the golden rules for making charts that are honest, clear, and actually useful. Okay, first up, tenure, charges, and trends. We're tackling a classic question that has probably crossed your mind. If you're a loyal customer, are you getting a better deal, or are you secretly paying more than everyone else? Let's find out.
So how do we even start to figure this out? We've got to see the data. Picture a graph. Along the bottom, we put how long customers have stuck around, that's their tenure, and up the side, we put what they pay each month. The perfect way to see this all at once is a scatter plot. It's kind of like looking at a constellation made up of thousands of individual customers.
And here's the big reveal from the data, a correlation of positive 0.25. Now, what on earth does that actually mean? Well, it tells us there's a slight upward trend. The longer you stay, the more you tend to pay. But, and this is a really big but, the connection is super weak. It's not a strong pattern at all. It's more of a vague suggestion.
But if you dig into that scatter plot, you find something fascinating. It has this ridiculously technical name, heteroskedasticity. Seriously, don't worry about the word. All it means is that the data points are spread out unevenly. For new customers, prices are all over the map. Some are paying a little, some are paying a lot. But for the long-term loyal customers, their prices are all bunched up much more tightly and usually on the higher end.
So, if you're the manager, what do you do with this info? That weak correlation is actually a huge warning sign. It's screaming at you, don't treat all your loyal customers the same. Some of them are probably happily adding new services and paying more, while others are sitting on some ancient discounted plan. This gives you a massive opportunity to get smart, maybe offer relevant upgrades, or just check in on your highest paying customers to make sure they're feeling the love.
All right, let's move on to our next piece of the puzzle, churn and contract clues. We've talked about the customers who are staying, but what about the ones who are leaving? This is all about customer churn, and for any subscription business, this is the metric that can keep you up at night.
And when you put the customers who left side by side with the ones who stayed, wow. The pattern is just, it's unavoidable. The folks who churned were, on average, paying way more, and their bills were all over the place. The customers who stuck around, they had lower, more predictable prices. The message here is loud and clear. Price is a huge reason why people are heading for the exit.
Okay, so knowing this leads to some pretty obvious strategies. You could get ahead of the problem, right? Reach out to your highest paying customers with a better deal before they decide to leave. You can avoid that dreaded bill shock by just being transparent before prices jump. Or, hey, here's a thought. Make it easy for someone to downgrade to a cheaper plan instead of making cancel subscription their only way out.
But hold on, it's not just about how much they pay. When you look at what kind of contract they're on, the story gets even more interesting. You can see it right here. Customers on those flexible month-to-month plans, they are leaving in droves. People on a one-year contract are more likely to stay. And the ones locked into a 2-year deal, they are by far the most loyal.
This brings us to this really cool idea called retention anchors. Think about it like that. A long-term contract literally acts like an anchor. It creates commitment, maybe through discounts or just the sheer hassle of switching, and it keeps that customer from just drifting away to a competitor. For any business, that kind of stability is pure gold.
Okay, take a deep breath. We've seen how charts can be a powerful force for good, for finding the truth. Now, for the fun part. We're going to flip the script and dive into the dark side to see how these exact same tools can be twisted to create a complete fantasy.
So, let's start with some simple, totally honest data. Here's a company's revenue. 100 million, then 98, then 101, then 99. I mean, you can see it's basically flat. A tiny wobble, but there's no real story here. Pretty boring, right? Okay, now watch this. If you wanted to turn that boring data into a thrilling story of explosive growth, you only need 2 sneaky tricks. The first is called selection bias, or cherry picking.
The second is axis truncation, a visual trick to make small things look huge. Let me break them down.
Trick number 1, cherry picking. This is a lie of omission. It's so simple, it's almost genius. You just pretend the data you don't like doesn't exist. So for our revenue numbers, you just ignore the dips in Q2 and Q4. And just like that, you've magically created a story of steady growth from 100 to 101.
But that little bump isn't dramatic enough. So you bring in the visual knockout punch, axis truncation. Instead of starting the chart's vertical axis at 0 where it belongs, you start it just below your lowest number, say at 95. When you do that, that tiny 1% increase suddenly looks like you're climbing Mount Everest. This is what the experts call increasing the lie factor, where the visual distortion is way, way bigger than the reality of the data.
So how do we fight back against this kind of deception? How do we become immune? Well, we need a code of conduct. And that brings us to our final section, all built on the legendary principles from the godfather of data visualization, Edward Tufte. Tufte's entire philosophy boils down to one simple, powerful idea. Above all else, show the data. That's it. That's the whole job. Everything else, all the design, all the colors, all the formatting, it all has to serve that one goal. The data is the hero of the story. The chart is just the stage.
And this leads to his first big rule, the data-ink ratio. It sounds technical, but it's really simple. Think of it this way. For all the ink, or pixels, on your chart, how much of it is actually showing you data? Anything else, decorative backgrounds, heavy grid lines, those awful 3D effects, he has a great name for it, chart junk. Your goal is to erase the junk and maximize the data.
So, how do you do it? It's a simple process of subtraction. Get rid of heavy grid lines. Absolutely eliminate 3D effects. They almost always distort the data. Ditch any decorative shading or borders. And if you have a legend that's just repeating information that's already labeled, get rid of it. Every single pixel should have to earn its place on the screen.
Tufte's second big principle brings us full circle. It's not about respecting the lie factor. This is the perfect antidote to that axis truncation trick we saw. The rules are simple. If it's a bar chart, you start the axis at 0. Period. You keep your scales consistent, and most importantly, you make sure the size of the thing you see on the screen is proportional to the size of the number it represents. If one number is twice as big, the bar should be twice as tall. No cheating.
So, what's the bottom line in all of this? I think it's that you should think of visualization as a language. It is an incredibly powerful language that can communicate complicated ideas in an instant. And just like any language, it can be used to clarify and to tell the truth, or it can be used to confuse and to manipulate. The responsibility is on the person creating the chart and on you, the person looking at it.
And that's our journey. We've decoded customer behavior, we've uncovered retention strategies, and we have learned the dark arts of data deception. So I'll just leave you with this one thought. The very next time you see a chart in a presentation or an article, what is the first question you're going to ask yourself? Thanks for tuning in.